That's right, everybody. Welcome back once again to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. As always, I'm your host, Rob Cramer, joined by my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing wonderful. I'm doing wonderful. I can tell you that. It's just aside from how the playoffs ended and stuff, and the Giants and stuff. I'm at least doing wonderful.
Well, it's good to hear. At least you're doing well, buddy. Yeah, it's been a crappy couple of days for us New York sports fans right now, outside of the Yankee fans there, that is. But we'll be getting into the Yankees in a little bit. But yeah, man, so much to get into as obviously the Mets miracle run came to an end this past Sunday night, unfortunately, where they would lose in LA in game 6 to end their season. The Dodgers advanced to the World Series to take on the Yankees, who knocked out the Cleveland Guardians at the end of last week. So, we have the World Series matchup, Yankees-Dodgers, for the first time since 1981. It's going to be, it should be a hell of a series, even though it's going to be bittersweet for us Met fans. But then not only that, we got the Knicks tipping off yesterday in Boston. We got the Rangers off to a red-hot start right now. So definitely a lot on the table tonight, Dan. But you know what? Let's kick it off where you started things just a second ago, talking about the NLCS and the Mets dropping Game 6. Was a tough one, man. Very, very tough loss for our Mets. They end up losing Game 6 of the NLCS 10-5 in LA. They come up short in their bid for a World Series appearance for the first time since 2015. But man, you know what? The way I'm looking at it is as bittersweet and disappointing as it is from a fan's perspective. If you're a Met fan right now today and you're giving the Mets shit or you're mad at them and you want to bitch and complain, give me a freaking break. This team just gave us a month's worth of phenomenal games and moment after moment after moment, getting up off the mat when people didn't give them a chance. But man, everything that happened in the regular season aside, too, just the final week of the regular season and the whole playoffs, man, the Mets gave us more than we ever could have dreamed of. I mean, let's go back to about a month ago when Francisco Lindor hit that big go-ahead
Oh
home
my
run
God,
against the Braves.
that was just. I was going nuts. I almost fell down celebrating. Like, for one thing, I gotta say, from that moment on, it is just hard to choose. I just look at it for one thing before I go on everything that I feel went wrong with the team, and maybe just the parts that I feel that was missing from this team. I just really want to go over the good stuff that happened this season. This team didn't look like we were gonna didn't look like we were gonna make it. It just looked everything up until June didn't look like we were gonna make it, but then something just sparked all that stuff. I'm at the Grimace who's right now sitting is he kind of sits in the living room because I feel like it just brings more mojo sitting in the living room. But when he's inside from when I take him to games, but my Grimace, but maybe next week we'll debut Executive Grimace. But anyway, right now that season was just incredible, and there is just so many moments. And I'm going to include the playoffs, even though sometimes that's why there's not a reputation of rerunning playoff games. But let's just say that they do rerun playoff games for the sake of it, because it's all part of the season, including playoffs, including the regular season. It's hard to pick which moment would be the game from last year that will become the go-to for next season during rain delays. There is just so many moments you could choose from. I feel like the Grimace game could be a good one. That game against the Astros where Jose Iglesias performed OMG live could be one of those. The subways.
But Dan, you know what though? Too, when you look back at this season, it's almost like everything really didn't matter up until, I mean, look, let's be honest. they stunk up until mid-June, like you said. They had the best record in baseball after June with that. And like you said, you could pick your moments from the regular season. The Mets, especially from June on, provided us with plenty of regular season moments, as they were definitely one of the better teams in baseball from mid-June on. But I mean, Dad, just in the playoffs alone, I can't even believe the amount of moments we got in this run. I feel like there weren't even this many moments on the 2015 run that ended in the World Series. When you look at this, I mean, obviously talking about the Lindor home run. Then you got to take a look at the big Pete Alonso 3-run shot facing elimination off. Let's not forget Devin Williams, one of the best closers in baseball in Milwaukee. So I mean that moment too. Then they had to fight back against the Philadelphia Phillies, where the Phillies were a much heavier favorited team, and the Mets just did everything in their power to keep the Phillies off. Alonso had a big game off Aaron Nola, and then you had the obvious Francisco Lindor grand slam that for all intents and purposes ended that series and the Phillies season. And then they still even gave us a couple of moments in the NLCS too that unfortunately ended a little too early for us. But that Mark Vientos grand slam in game 2 in LA. How about the Pete Alonso 3-run shot in the first inning off Jack Flaherty? And that's not even talking about what Mark Vientos did in the NLDS against the Philadelphia Phillies. Dan, he was 9 for 16 in that series with a home run and 6 RBIs. I mean, the things the Mets got from all over their roster this year and the moments they gave us in the postseason are things we're going to be talking about for decades.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing before we close the book on the season.
There we go. A little OMG there, a little throwback.
Yep, I just had to hold up this sign. It's just too bad I finally got a hold of one of these OMG foam figures that the Mets were randomly giving out, and I think was really part of a ticket package. That it was at the viewing party at the Game 6 of the NLCS, unfortunately. Wish I had more time with this sign during this playoff run, but here it is right here. And I'm gonna take this with me to the Queens Baseball Convention.
There you go.
To just give it one nice tour with fellow Met fans to see it, and I'm gonna bring the executive Grimace, the executive producer Grimace, executive producer of Best Seat in House podcast productions, with actually Beezus Productions. The executive producer of Beezus Productions will be coming with me, and hopefully. And I recommend any one of you who's going to the Queens Baseball Convention, please, I encourage you, at least one of you, wear a Grimace suit because I didn't get a pic. I wasn't lucky enough to get a picture with even the Grimace or a fan wearing a Grimace suit that was sitting near where I was to really be able to just get a picture. I just need that picture with Grimace. Right? I need that picture with the Grimace. And plus that. Well, at least we got executive producer Grimace. So I can always see that smiled Grimace as he either sits in a living room or next to my Mr. Met plush.
Exactly, man.
But I need to get a photo next to someone in a Grimace suit. And I gotta admit this: if the Mets were in the World Series, had they won the NLCS on Saturday, you know what I would have done at your Halloween party?
Yeah,
I would have shown up. I would have bought a Grimace suit because I think there would have been enough time for me to order it on Amazon or something to have it shipped to me in time. I would have ordered a Grimace suit and showed up with holding the OMG sign instead of wearing the Deadpool hoodie that I'm going to be wearing because I didn't really have much. Yeah, I didn't have much because because it's like choose between that and try to make sure there's a little bit in reserve for the World Series. It's like weird when in August it's like I get a coup that maybe I got to reserve a little bit to get the World Series tickets, but save a little bit for the World Series tickets. But because but that would have been what I would have shown up in a Grimace suit and with the OMG sign. But instead I'm gonna show up wearing a Deadpool hoodie. maybe I'll show up having Careless Whisperer blaring out off my phone, because that is one of my favorite songs on a Deadpool soundtrack, and one of my favorite moments in the movie. Just the way they utilize that song. Plus, that, let's face it, it's the greatest breakup song ever.
Well, that's probably true, my friend. But you know what? You said you were going to show up to my house in a Grimace costume. You know who should have shown up to LA in Game 6 of the NLCS in a Grimace costume? That's Sean Manaea, because he didn't have it, man. And you know what? We are not going to sit here and kill these guys for losing this game. I don't want to sit here. Excuse me. I don't want to knock Sean Manaea. The guy went out there and did not have it. He ran out of gas in the start before, man. Manaea, 2 innings, 6 hits, 5 runs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts. The guy didn't have it. They pulled it. I think, Carlos Mendoza probably made the right move, because it would have gotten far out of hand even before that. But yeah, man, I think Sean Manaea deserves all the credit in the world for the great postseason he had, especially that great start against the Phillies. 7 innings, 1 run, but he threw a great game in game 3 against the Dodgers, and in game 2 against the Dodgers, and he threw another, unfortunately, a bad game here, but he threw a great game against the Brewers in his first playoff start too. So all the credit in the world to Sean Manaea.
Yeah, I have to say that, but I really feel I feel like the pitching was great, but I just feel like maybe so far the one shortcoming of David Stearns is maybe not really, I feel like, didn't do enough to go all in during the offseason. I feel like that's what he needs to do this offseason. And one of the major areas he didn't go after was pitching. Specifically pitching that was like an ace. This team didn't really have an ace. I feel like we had pitchers that were maybe number 3, maybe the best, maybe mostly 4 and 5. I feel like you need to have one or two, a number 1 or a number 2 starter to really have that pitching that could really pitch the amount of innings that it would take to get through a regular season, a playoff, and the World Series. That's what I feel like it was missing. Like, this pitching got us there, but you really have to have a staff anchored by a 1 or a 2. And we kind of did have that. We had that in Senga, but he was injured, and I feel like he spent most of the season trying to recover from an injury, and was injured trying to come back from an injury. And the one time he came back, it looked like he was ready for game action. It's like he got injured, and there just wasn't enough time to really get him to just come back to game action. It just looked like it was rushed, and it was just, maybe it wasn't a good idea having him on the roster, and
Senga should not have been on the NLCS roster. But you know what? The NLDS, it made sense. The NLCS, it didn't. It blew up in their face. You know what? I can't even really knock them for it too much. It was worth the gamble. It didn't work out. The thing is, though, Dan, what you said, though, that they didn't really go all in last offseason. And you're right. And that's what pissed me and you off, because, that's why we were so upset going into the regular season and had such such a bad view of what they did that offseason, because obviously me and you didn't complain about picking up Manaea. We liked that. We didn't complain about picking up Severino. We might have mocked it because he had a bad year, but it was a decent upside signing, So it's not like we killed them for that. What we killed them for was just not going out and getting the pieces like a Yamamoto or like an Ohtani. And look what team they're on this year. They're on the Dodgers, and the Mets lost to the Dodgers in the NLCS. So, you know what, though? I don't want to make this about that, though. But there are questions about where we're going forward here now, Dan, where the Mets have a lot of free agents on this team, too. It's kind of similar to the 2022 team that had a lot of free agents following that year. Obviously we know Luis Severino is going to be a free agent. We know Jose Quintana is going to be a free agent. We know that most likely Sean Manaea is probably going to opt out of his contract because he's on the last year of his deal. It's a player option. So he could choose to pick it up for $14 million, or he could choose to become a free agent. And with the season he had, I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't go to free agency. So, I mean, Dan, the question is, where do we go from here? Because now we're pretty much starting another rotation again with really just Senga, McGill, and Peterson.
Well, I feel one place to start. Well, aside from pitching, I think the position players we need to start with first. I think the Mets should sign Pete Alonso. I just feel like Pete Alonso just gives me the vibe, even though he's with Scott Boras, and I'm just hoping that he's going to do this. Might just probably be more. They need to talk to him. That's what they need to do. They need to talk to try to go in at least give a good. I don't if he leaves me, but at least put a good effort to keep him. Actually, talk to him.
Dan. If they let Pete Alonso walk now, it's a disgrace and it's a disaster.
It would be the worst. Walk. It would be the worst tragedy since Tom Seaver of 1977.
Especially worst. After what he did in the playoffs for us.
Yeah. I feel him. The other thing, pitching before like any of these other, the guys that we had. One key there's two things that I feel need to be done. That the other thing, sign an ace. We need one more ace to complement Senga, which I feel is going to have a better job.
Get Corbin Burns from Baltimore. Me and you are on the same page. They
need to go all in with trying to negotiate him. Don't half-ass it. I saw they tried. They looked like they were doing a lot to get Yamamoto. It looked like Steve Cohen was the only player I felt like they even tried to go after, but that didn't. Because Steve Cohen, and even Steve Cohen's money didn't work. Because I feel like for some reason Japanese pitchers don't look much highly on the Mets. So maybe we need to focus domestically in that. The places that will.
And the thing is too, Corbin Burns is not gonna. He's 32 or something right now, 31, 32. So Corbin Burns is not going to cost you nearly the amount of money that a guy like Yamamoto would. Yamamoto is obviously $325 million, as opposed to Corbin Burns, who knows what it's going to take. You're probably looking more at it per year than you are for the duration of the contract. But I mean, he's probably going to get $30 million plus a year. But I'm all for it. They have to do anything they can because you completely transform your rotation if you put that guy on top.
Yeah, exactly. Another one, I feel like that they need to maybe that I feel like is gonna play a big factor. I forgot the guy's name. Brandon Scout. Am I pronouncing the name right? I remember the last name in their farm system. The Scout.
Oh, I forget the kid's name. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I think from what I've heard, they view him a lot as a reliever.
Yeah, that's the thing. I kind of wonder who do we even have that could be a starter, because I feel like we need to have at least one starter out of our farm system. Yeah, and I feel like the one guy we had, Zach Scott.
Oh, Christian Scott.
I meant Christian Scott. I'm sorry, I keep mixing Christian Scott. It's gonna be a question mark because we're gonna have him not next year, and it's like maybe we'll be lucky if we have him at spring training next year, 2026 is the earliest. Who do we even have that's close enough to the big leagues?
See, there's always guys that pop up that you don't really hear about. Like we were talking about Christian Scott. A year ago at this time, nobody even knew who he was. It's the same thing with the other kid, Brandon Sprout, you were talking about. So it's definitely something you always have to keep an eye on because these kids kind of come out of nowhere these days.
Yeah. I feel like Brandon Spout maybe is probably going to be. I feel like could be the pitcher that's coming out of our farm system. That's probably gonna probably come in at a. I feel like. Jacob deGrom level, I feel like, and as long as
I don't know about that. DeGrom's level was pretty damn high. I don't want to put that.
I don't mean like high, but I mean just like the way he came up and just turned out to be a pretty important pitcher. Then maybe was looked at. I feel like that's going to be thing. Maybe not. Don't need to do too much, and hopefully he doesn't get an injury. Like I feel like. Tyler McGill, I feel like could have been a great pitcher, but I just feel like the injury just did him in. Like he got an injury
they got to get rid of Tyler McGill. I'm sick of seeing Tyler McGill. They got to get rid of him. But
he just
yeah,
hasn't been the same since that injury. I feel like McGill
yeah,
hasn't been the same.
he's not good anymore. Whatever happened to Tyler McGill, I'm sick of seeing him. Get him off the team. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm also interested in seeing what happens with a couple of the young position players, like Ronnie Mauricio coming back off injury.
Yeah. But Mauricio, I'm kind of question mark probably because it looks like he hasn't progressed and did to the point
well, he's been
that
hurt. He's been hurt.
Yeah, and I feel like it's not it. I feel like this whole season it's going to be a question mark if he's going to ever be at the level that close to the level he was before the injury. Like I feel like before that he was on that rise, and I feel like it's gonna be he's not progressing. That I feel like
Well, we don't know if he's progressed or not because he hasn't played.
Yeah, good. But I was seeing reports that they said he hasn't really progressed much.
Yeah, but nobody really knows. I mean, he hasn't done any real baseball activities since
last
year.
So
we're not going to know until spring training. You know what I mean? We're not going to have a real feel on this kid until spring training.
I feel like he could be maybe great at second base.
He's going to be a utility guy, I think.
Yeah. I feel like Mauricio could be a utility guy. Maybe I forgot. Does it look like he could do anything outfield?
Yeah, they have had him play outfield. Yes, center field.
Yeah, I feel like he could be like the outfield. I feel like McNeil might be more the outfield, and I feel like Acuna could be the second baseman. Like it looks like I feel like he's going through a normal off season, and it's like I feel like he's gonna phase in a little bit more now in year 2. I feel like.
Yeah, and I think that Brett Beatty, unfortunately, is going to be the odd man out. I think they're going to end up trading him this offseason.
Yeah. I feel like they maybe could trade him, maybe get an okay reliever. Like I feel like there could be some middle reliever assets could be got for Brett Beatty. I feel like that's what needs to be done.
And that's one other thing too. Before we move on from the Mets, because we do got to talk about the Yankees. We've been yammering on about the Mets for the last 25 minutes. So we do kind of have to wrap it up in a sec. But real quick, there's one more guy I want the Mets to add 100% that I want them to go. I don't care what you have to pay him. We got the richest owner in sports. Give this guy closer money if he wants. Sign Tanner Scott, the guy who got traded from the Marlins to the San Diego Padres. He's a great lefty. He was used explicitly to get Shohei Ohtani out in the NLDS, and Ohtani went 0 for 8. So I'm really thinking that we keep that guy in the fold because I want Tanner Scott bad.
That's another one. I feel like Tanner Scott could be a great 8th inning guy, and I feel
100%.
I feel like that's just a lockdown 8th inning if all things go well. 8th inning Tanner Scott, then Diaz. That would
smoke.
That would be smoke. I feel like they're two guys. I feel like he's a guy that can handle it. I feel like Diaz is more a 9th inning guy.
Oh yeah, no doubt about it. You keep Diaz as the closer because I think Diaz earned, especially in the postseason this year, Diaz earned his Mets pinstripes.
Yeah. I just feel like it. I feel like the last 2 months or so of the season, maybe around June, I feel like Diaz was finally just got over the recovery injury hump because I just feel like when I see players, and I feel like this is maybe what affects Singa, is that he didn't have enough time to really get that coming back from the injury hump. Because I feel like there's two things that are coming back for there's the work, the rehab, all the working out. Then there is the in-game action, the minor league, where they slowly work their way in because the minor leagues, you're still playing in front of fans, even though it's a smaller amount than the major league. You still got that. You still got a sense of like, there's people watching, and a team like the Mets, when you see a player like a big star rehabbing, those stadiums sell out. Like remember when DeGrom was rehabbing, those minor league stadiums were getting regular crowds.
Yeah, so no doubt about it, man.
So I feel like with the Mets, you really get to rehab. You really get to rehab. When you pitch a rehab start, you're really preparing to be back in the majors because of how everything's just magnified and it's like draws attention that you're going to get those kind of crowds. And then there's the final one, the one you're wearing the big league uniform, which is the other pressure. the one that you just mentally, you feel that energy like you're in a big league stadium.
Very true. Very true.
That's when it's really on the line. That's the part that's the final part of the rehab is adjusting to that.
Yeah, you're right, Dan. And then so I just want to close the book on the Mets here now. Let's turn the page over to the Yankees, as the Yankees ended up wrapping things up with the Cleveland Guardians in 5 games in the ALCS. They took them down relatively easily. I mean, real quick on this, Dan, because this is almost a week old at this point, but I mean, geez, could the Yankees have had an easier path to the World Series? Now, look, yeah. I don't want to sit here and be the Met fans that shit all over the Yankees because, okay, it was kind of easy. But I do want to point out that I'm a student of baseball history. I pay very close attention to the history of Major League Baseball. And just me thinking about the Yankees and each time they've gotten to the World Series, I mean, you could go back in the book and see that there has never been an easier path to the World Series for the Yankees. Never. Maybe you could say in 2009 when they beat the Twins, who stunk, and they beat the Angels, who are a good team, but could never beat the Yankees except for 2002. Maybe that was it. But I think those two teams were far better than the Kansas City Royals team and the Cleveland Guardians team the Yankees played this year.
Yeah, I just feel like the Yankees had it too easy. They had no true opponent. I feel like there was 2 opponents that really had a chance to beat the Yankees. It was the Baltimore Orioles or the Houston Astros. And maybe if you want to look even further, probably us. Like, I think the Yankees that had a real hard chance against us.
I think you're right.
But yeah. I just feel like if you're looking in the American League alone, they had it easy because they did not have to face the Orioles or the Astros. I feel like those are the 2 biggest competition they had in the American League that could have probably beat the Yankees.
And you also have to factor in, Dan. You also have to factor in that the Kansas City Royals, who were a wild card team, and all credit to them, they won their series. So, they advanced to the LDS. They won the wild card series. So you have to give them credit for that. But you have to remember, the Kansas City Royals team and the Cleveland Guardians team the Yankees both played are teams that were 100%. The only reason they made the playoffs is because they shared a division with the team that took the mantle of worst team of all time from the 1962 Mets, the Chicago White Sox. You could effectively add 8 to 10 wins to each of these teams at the end of the year because of the games they played against the Chicago White Sox. So, realistically, you could say that the Kansas City Royals should have been a 77-win team, but it got pumped up to 85 because they shared a division with the Chicago White Sox, who stunk at an unprecedented level this year. So I think what a lot of people aren't factoring in is the Chicago White Sox played a big role in this.
Yeah, I kind of feel like that too. And at the same time, I feel like all of them just really, I feel like you had to have this pitching and just something that wasn't phased by the Yankees. And they did not really have what I felt was like big game pitchers. I just really, they had 0 big, and I feel like maybe the Cleveland Guardians would have had a better chance because I feel like maybe their number 2 was good. But I feel like what really did them in, their best pitcher was hurt.
Yeah, Shane Bieber's out, and also Tristan McKenzie.
Yeah, I feel like if they had Tristan McKenzie and Shane Bieber, they would have fared better against the Yankees. I feel
no
like
doubt about it.
It would have been. It might have even gone to a game 7.
It would have gone a lot further than 5.
Yeah, I feel like it would. I feel like the Cleveland Guardians would have been like, well, the then Cleveland Indians in that movie Major League. A team that really gave the fictional Yankees a run for their money. It would have been on that level. That's what you would have seen. And I feel like if that was the case, there would have and the Mets had won the NLCS. There would have been a situation where me and one of my friends with my mom and one of her friends in Cleveland would have gone back and forth, and because of my mom, that my mom's friend of mine supports Beasts, by the way, but there would have been, and then one of my friends in Cleveland would have been a nice friendly competition, but would have been a crazy competition, I can tell you that. And and I just feel like I would have, but I feel like the Yankees are just their whole path. They're facing tough competition, and I feel like the toughest competition they're facing is against the Dodgers. This World Series could go 7. I really feel like it's 50-50 that either team could win it.
Well, hang on one sec. We're going to get there in 1 sec, Dan. Before the World Series prediction, because we are going to get there 1 sec, I do want to give a shout out and close out things on the ALCS. We got to give a shout out to Giancarlo Stanton, because Yankee fans bitch about this guy constantly, and they do not have a bigger or better playoff performer than Giancarlo Stanton. So Yankee fans, when Giancarlo pulls his hamstring next May and he's out for 3 weeks and you're sitting there crying because Judge has no protection in the lineup, shut up. Because the only reason Giancarlo Stanton the only reason the Yankees are in the World Series right now is because of Giancarlo Stanton. Aaron Judge, in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs, did both jack and shit. And that's all he did. Judge had a great regular season, hands down slam dunk MVP, but came up very small in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. Now, he can erase all of that with his World Series run if he does a great job against the Dodgers. But the guy that deserves the bulk of the credit for getting the Yankees to the World Series over the hump for the first time since 2009 is Giancarlo Stanton.
Yeah, I feel like a couple of things I got to say about Giancarlo Stanton. For one thing, I got to give a lot of props that he managed to come a long way. Managed to go, I mean, it maybe took a little time. Maybe there was a bunch of variables. He was on a team that had little pressure. No one goes to in Miami.
But he's been on the Yankees he's been on the Yankees for 7 years now. He knows the deal here.
Yeah. I feel like he knows the deal, but it took him I feel like this is the first year that I really feel like Giancarlo Stanton really has it all together.
I don't agree with that. He's been really good, especially in the playoffs. He's been a slam dunk in the playoffs for the Yankees since 2020.
Oh yeah, I guess maybe you could say that, but. And I just have to give credit for so many things. Maybe I don't know what it is that he's risen this at finally, and he finally was able to get it together in 2020. I wonder maybe after Derek Jeter left co-owning the Marlins, I wonder if he talked to Giancarlo Stanton a little bit. Another one I kind of wonder who he talked to. I feel like maybe what really got him over the hump maybe this year, maybe the reason I say that he's able to be a real playoff performer. I feel like Chaz Chisholm. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the name right. I don't know if I pronounced the name right. Sorry if I mispronounced it. Sorry, Chaz, if I mispronounced your name. Apologies. I'll apologize. Even though I'm a Mets fan, I will apologize to you in person if we ever cross paths. But I just want to say that. I wonder if he maybe talked to Giancarlo Stanton a little bit. Or maybe Giancarlo Stanton maybe helped Chaz a little bit, adjusting to going from a team with little expectations that no one went to like the Yankees. I feel like you're playing just any NY, this NY on my hat or the NY on the Yankees. There's just a lot of pressure to win. That's the thing I see like the Mets and the Yankees have in common. There's just both fans have crazy enthusiasm like no other for baseball, and there is just a lot of pressure to win. If you have New York on your hat, whichever New York it is, there is pressure to win, and it's a big adjustment. It's just different, Dan. And I feel like one of the things that makes a good player in New York is I feel like that makes the adjustment easily if you've had playoff experience. If you've been like near, in, or close to a World Series, I just feel like you've had to have like large crowds to do that, to really, really get a gist of that. I feel like that's a part of it. And I feel like you had to have the right people as your teammates that really are acclimated to it, that could really get you ready for this expectations. I just feel like it takes a different pressure, and I feel like certain players acclimated it too well. I think one of the reasons why Pedro Martinez, who prior to his injuries, you remember like 2005 and 2006, I feel like what made Pedro Martinez that great, he played for the Red Sox, which had a huge expectations. He managed to break a big drought. Another player I think similar.
He was also on the Expos before that, so
the Expos. But I feel like that Red Sox experience and accomplishing that on another team that at the time had this huge burden helped them get acclimated to that. Another player that maybe I can maybe also describe. I feel like that's kind of that's maybe gotten on that burden. Anthony Rizzo. I feel like the reason Anthony Rizzo adjusted to the Yankees, which I feel like took a lot longer than expected. I feel like he played on the Cubs. He was on the 2016 team, but prior to that, he was on the Cubs, which prior to 2016 had a big burden that also I feel like has a large following that had a big championship burden, and he broke that burden. He managed to be a part of that win, and I feel like that helped them prepare for the Yankees. I feel like
I agree with you. What are you saying?
Yeah, that's everything I was saying.
Okay, so I agree with you on that. I think Rizzo definitely, helps the Yankees out a lot there with that experience, no doubt about it. But Dan, now we are going to move on from the baseball. One last thing, two things for this. One last thing, but it's two things. First, Dan, I'm going to ask you who you want to win the World Series. I'll ask you who you think is going to win next. But first, who do you want to win the World Series?
I just feel like the Dodgers, even though as much as I get annoyed by all the Ohtani stuff going on, it's giving me vibes of Michael Jordan, everything. Every time like the Knicks, it's giving me that vibes. I gotta give my hats off to Ohtani, even though he's just a DH until he can prove he can pitch again. It's just a DH, but Ohtani is just really like a star, baby. I'll give it to it. It's like his generation. Even though I feel like the Dodgers are the National League version of the Yankees. Like it's a World Series between two of the biggest, fakest fan bases in baseball, are the Dodgers and the Yankees. Even though I know there are Yankee fans and Dodger fans that are real fans, I know who they are. But I see a lot of these fake celebrities who never was born in the LA area, weren't born in California, only became in California when they became famous to do their careers. They don't have roots in California. They just think it's a cool thing that you live in LA, you beat the Dodgers. No, and I just feel like there's just fake fans that are just fake because they think it's cool to like the Dodgers. They're the biggest, fakest fans in the National League. I'm sorry. That's my opinion about the Dodgers. They haven't had real fans since they left Brooklyn.
True. So, Dan, you want the Dodgers to win. What's your prediction for the series now?
All right. I feel like the Dodgers could win this in anywhere between either 5 or 7 games, I feel like.
Okay, so you think it's not going to be a sweep, but you think the Dodgers could wrap it up quick?
Yeah. I think they could wrap it up quick, or they could have to go to 7 games. I feel like of those. I feel like that's the way it's going to play out. It's either going to be quick or 7 games, and it's not going to be a sweep. But one of those scenarios is going to play out.
So for me, and I think that's very reasonable what you're saying there. I definitely and pretty much with you on that too. However, I can't root for the Dodgers in this series. I'm really effectively not going to be rooting for the Yankees either. But if I had to pick one team to win, it's probably the Yankees. As much as I hate it, as much as I don't want to see the Yankees win another championship, as much as I don't want to see a parade down the Canyon of Heroes that's not for our team, as much as it will annoy me, there are a couple of things about this that I love tweaking Dodger fans about 2020 and how it's not a real championship, even though it is. But you just say it's not just to piss them off. And look, I have never had anything against the Dodgers when I lived in LA. The Dodgers were kind of like my second team. I always looked at them as kind of like the Mets' older brother in a way. My family came from Brooklyn. My grandfather and my great uncle were Dodger fans and everything. So hold on one sec, Dan.
I have to say,
hold on one sec. So the Dodgers are the team that I always liked after the Mets. So I'll have to say that I think that as much as I want the Yankees to win, and because look, I'm not going to forgive the Dodgers for the series. I'll never forgive the Cardinals for 2006. I'll never forgive the Kansas City Royals for 2015. And I guess you could say I finally forgave the Yankees from 2000 because I'm actually going to root for them in this, even though I still hate the Yankees. But I'm sorry, Darren, are you saying?
And for one thing,
and I got Dodgers in 6 too.
Yeah, I have to say this about this. As always, ever since 1996, I don't really watch the World Series when it's with the Yankees. I don't know why. It's just hard for me to see another team in the same city as my Mets celebrate. What I usually do, though, if I see that the Yankees are very close to losing it, I kind of like watching that moment. I love, if the Mets don't make it, I do love seeing the Yankees lose. I love seeing the Yankees, Rays, or Phillies lose. And I would just love to see that and not have to see the Yankee fans and their ego. I mean, so I do, of course, watch the highlights of each game of the World Series after it ended.
Let's start this off with the Jets. We'll start off with my Jets as the Jets had another really great performance that definitely didn't make me want to jump in front of a moving train or anything. Watching this garbage performance from this past weekend, as the Jets get blown out by the Steelers 37-15. Just an absolute disgraceful performance where the Jets started off this game up 15-6, blew it, and then they they end up rebounding, and the Steelers that had rebounded in the second half of the game completely blew the Jets out of the water 37-15. Davante Adams, Dan, I don't know if you heard this. This just came out today that Davante Adams, who's only been on the Jets for a week, came out and gave a speech to his teammates following Sunday night's loss, saying that him and Aaron Rodgers both separately said that they did not like the enthusiasm or the just the level of guys being pumped up for the game and the energy, and they said they both felt it. And Davante Adams, who's a veteran that that everybody respects in that locker room, that's going to the Hall of Fame one day, comes out and tells his teammates, "Hey, we got to step it up after a crushing loss on Sunday Night Football." You know what? I see some fans aren't too happy about that, but I gotta say, kudos to Davante Adams for speaking up and saying something, right?
Yeah, I just have to give credit when I just heard about this. I got to give kudos to that. That's really a bold step. That is kind of the thing you want to see in a player, even if they just join the team. Like that is just really the way to do it. It's just really you got to really give a lot of credit to someone who steps up the moment they join the team. That is just already showing right there that Davante Adams is just winning as a player on the Jets so far, like on a new team. Right there already, he's showing a bold step winning on a new team just by really speaking to his teammates, like really just committed from day one to being a team player. That's got to play.
Yeah, that's veteran leadership, right?
Yeah, that is just something to be able to say that you show up from day one. That's so far, that at least that part is working well.
Yeah, I mean, so hey, look, things haven't played out on the field yet, but you get a veteran like that. That's what's one of the things that we've been talking about early on in this season with the Jets. It's holding people accountable. That's coaches, that's players, and damn right, that's even owners, Woody Johnson. But right now, it all starts from the top. And when you have a guy at the top of your roster like Devontae Adams calling people out, and not he wasn't naming people individually, but just to go out there and say, "Hey guys, our energy level is not where it has to be. Let's get it up a little bit." Hopefully that sends a shockwave through this team that wakes them up. And one other thing that could help this team out too is that they finally have their pass rusher that they've been waiting for 6 months to show up, Hassan Reddick. He ends his holdout. He missed the first he missed the first 7 games of the season, but he's finally here. The Jets are going to have him for the final 10 weeks of the year. They have until November 1st to activate him. But from everything I'm hearing so far, it looks like he's going to be playing as early as this Sunday against the Patriots at 1 p.m. So, it's a big game up in New England. The Jets looking to get off a 4-game losing streak. They're bringing in Hassan Reddick, and that can only mean good things, right, Dan?
Yeah, I just feel like that I got to give credit to that. He's finally practicing with the team, and I just got to say right now, this game is must win for the Jets. If the Jets have any hope of making the playoffs, they need to start now and keep playing their best from here on out. They need to start right here. And I feel like if they can get in, they could make real noise if they get in. If they can start playing how they should right now, they'll be making some real noise if they get in.
Yeah, man. And every year so far in the 2020s, going back the last 4 years, 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023, every year so far in the 2020s, an NFL team that started the season 2-5 made the playoffs. Last year's was the 2-5 Jordan Love led Green Bay Packers, winning out the rest of their games and going into the playoffs and winning a playoff game as well. So look, 2-5 isn't great, but not only do we have that in the back pocket, the last time myself as a Jets fan, and this came all the way back in 2002 when I was 16 years old, the last time the Jets had a division championship was in 2002. The last time they held a home playoff game was 2002, and that year they started 2-5, and then Herm Edwards made the switch from Testaverde to Pennington, and they won the division. So it wouldn't be the first time. So let's keep our fingers crossed that the Jets got some 2-5 magic in there.
Yeah, exactly. And also that thing. Remember that thing I told you? For those of you who didn't see the Patreon show, you probably know what you're talking about. Subscribe to our Patreon to get this thing. Remember what I was telling you about on the Patreon show about a video talking about like the analyze little obscure things about NFL history, especially with the history of various games broadcast. Did you get to see that video about that wild card game?
I didn't actually, but I have to go check that out. So
I don't know. Well, first of all, did you find it on YouTube? Because if not, I mean, did you even find the YouTuber that I'm talking about?
No.
I'll send you the link to this video, and definitely watch all the other videos from this guy, because I just feel like this guy really. I feel like he's a football expert. Like, I would love to have this guy on the show, especially the way he talks about these obscure things about football history, even with history and stuff in the broadcast. Like I said, that, and especially I love that video he talked about how all the circumstances surrounding the fact that Monday Night Football game in 1986, the Giants against the then Redskins, how it fell on the same day as Game 7 of the World Series, and all the all the different variables, and then the fans that kind of had probably had their Walkmans or portable TVs that I heard about were all the rage back then. I'm just going to say that I have said more. The Walkmans, they probably had their Walkmans. They were probably listening to Bob Murphy doing play-by-play of Game 7 of the World Series on their walk. Bob Murphy and Gary Thorne doing the play-by-play of Game 7 of the World Series. At the same time, they're watching the Giants defeat the Redskins on a field on the same day. And you even got. I really recommend looking at the video. I recommend looking at the broadcast of the game, that specific part when the Mets had won the World Series during that game, because you could tell all the fans, even without the graphic, but even before the graphic flashed up on the scoreboard, Mets win World Series, you could hear all the fans, especially the ones that were in the stands that were also Met fans, they were cheering. You hear a loud "Let's Go Mets" chant in that state.
That's right. Yeah, so Dan, make sure you include that guy's name to me, and I'll put it in the description of this video. But just to keep going on your Giants here, because we're very late here. It's we got to finish up here now as the Giants lost 28-3 to the Eagles. Not a game you exactly want to relive. It was it could become effectively known as the Saquon Barkley revenge game, as he went out there and had 17 carries for 176 yards and a touchdown, second most receiving yards against a former team in NFL history. Cedric Benson in 2009 against the Bears is the only one that had a better game against his former team. But Dan, that must have just been, as a Giants fan, heartbreaking to see. Yeah,
it was already the first of a double headache. That is what I call that game. Usually I call like a 2-sport doubleheader. This was a 2-sport double headache on that Sunday. I just feel like the defense was on the field too much, that it just wore out the defense. I feel like the offense couldn't complete drives every time. I just feel like Daniel Jones couldn't really throw the foot. He just doesn't have the ability to complete drives. That's what it is. Didn't have the ability to complete drives, and it just really wore on and to keep the defense from being on the field too much. I just feel it hurt our chances.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that, man.
That's what I feel like just hurt our chances, and I feel like maybe. And I forgot, is Daniel Jones, are they starting Daniel Jones next week, or does it look like they're going with their backup?
No, it looks like they're definitely going with Daniel Jones again. They took him out, even though he got beat up a little bit. They took him out because of...
I feel like the Jets, they got to win this game to really carry any hope of the season. They got to win this game, and I feel like if they don't win this game, maybe it probably might be time to bench Daniel Jones and punt the rest of the season if they don't win this game.
Well, and it makes no sense, too, that the offense took such a step back because, look, the Eagles have a decent defense, but it's by no means one of the best defenses in football. And, the week before, the Giants went out and scored. Dan, I don't know if you're touching that microphone. I'm getting some feedback here. So if you can just
no problem, right.
But anyway. So the Giants got back Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary, and they scored 29 points last week against the Seahawks without those guys, and then they come back home this week with them, and the offense just completely hits a wall. So you're just gonna. The Giants are figuring out week by week by this thing, and the one thing they have going for them though is that Brian Daboll is there, and I just have confidence that at some point he's gonna find a way to get this Giants offense in shape.
Yeah, I just feel like that's everything that needs to go out. And if that doesn't happen next week, like I said, if the Giants don't win, might as well punt and try to get a number 1 draft pick. Get a real quarterback if this doesn't go well.
Yeah, hey, and supposedly there's a couple of big quarterbacks in the draft next year, but I mean it's still a little too early. Nobody wants to be thinking about the draft in October, but unfortunately, us Jets and Giants fans have had to do that a couple of times the last few years. Speaking of draft picks too, the Giants traded a draft pick for this guy, Boogie Basham, who had a really good training camp and preseason with the Giants, but they released him yesterday. He really didn't do anything in the regular season for them. No sacks. He didn't look very good at all, so I don't blame the Giants for moving on from them, especially when they're getting ready now for a big game against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who, we saw against the Jets. A lot of people said the Steelers are just a creation of their easy schedule, and that the Steelers, aren't a very good team. They have a good defense, but the rest of the team stinks. Well, the Steelers proved they're a pretty formidable team, and that's going to be a big test for the Giants on next Monday night, right?
Yeah, I feel like this is a game that could be winnable, but it could be a borderline trap game. They need to take this game seriously. This is what I feel like really looks like so far, a trap game so far. Win this game, take care of this. If they win this, I feel like, what is it? It's the following week the game in Germany, I believe.
I'm not sure, to be honest. Not sure.
Yeah, because it's just like I get jumbled up because it's just I haven't had a week that felt like a normal the Giants and the Jets on Sunday. That just makes it a lot easier to do all this NFL coverage we do.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's been like this Roger Goodell next year. Don't have too many the Giants and the Jets playing on separate days. Have a little bit more Giants and Jets playing on Sunday afternoon. Even at 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and do me a favor, Goodell, please keep the Jets out of prime time. Nobody wants to see the Jets in prime time anymore. They lose every time. Please, just enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I just want to at least easier. Keep it. Just keep a majority of the Jets game. They need to throw at least one game. They have to probably put them once on prime time, probably at least. But just keep a majority of the Giants and Jets schedule on Sunday afternoon. Make it a little easy. Make it a little easier on us.
Exactly. 1 or 4 p.m. will be greatly welcomed. Greatly welcomed. No doubt about it.
Yeah, exactly. Plus that it's easier from a fair perspective attending games because exactly. Because the one time so far, there's 50-50. There could be one more Giants game I go to this year because I'm really eyeing going to Lawrence Taylor bobblehead day on the 3rd. That Sunday night game, it's like I would have normally taken a bus home from Woodside, but because of how long it takes specifically, I don't know why. On the way there, it seems quicker, but on the return trip, it seems to be longer to get from MetLife. The return trip seems to be longer. That I had to take an Uber home from Woodside to get to my neighborhood instead of waiting for the bus. And I feel like a Sunday afternoon, either a 1 o'clock or a 4 o'clock, I probably would have waited for the bus, but I had to spend a little bit more. Thank God it was just maybe like $12 on the Uber, but it's just easier to do game. Of course, if the Giants are in the playoffs, I don't mind that because unfortunately that's what goes with the territory. Plus, you can't pass up attending playoff football if you're given tickets. Am I right?
Exactly. And
but during the regular season, it's just a little easier from a fair perspective attending 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock.
Exactly. And that's going to do it for the football. So let's wrap up really quick with some basketball and hockey as we got the Knicks coming on last night. Look, we're not going to go too in depth in this right now. Both seasons are still so very early on. But I'm not one of these Knicks fans that are panicking. The Knicks got blown out last night, 132-109 on opening night in Boston. The Celtics set an opening night NBA record and their own franchise record for threes in a game with 29. The one thing I will say that is concerning, Dan, is that game last night reminded me a lot of, I forget which game, maybe game 3 or 4 against the Pacers in the second round last year, where the Knicks just didn't stop anything, and every single shot that the Pacers seemingly took from outside went in. That's what it looked like last night for the Celtics. They didn't miss. So the Knicks really had to step up their defensive game. But I felt like the rest of the game, offensively, the team looked pretty good.
Yeah, I feel like it's just I really never throw much stock into the first game of the season. I feel like the second game is mostly starts with. I feel like that's really where maybe the third game is where you really get a sense of where the team might head. I feel like, so I'm not really throwing much this game 1. So I just feel like we'll see where it goes game 2.
Yeah, it was a tough one for the Knicks last night. It was tough to watch as a fan But it was the fact too that a lot of people aren't considering too is that last night it was in Boston. They're the defending NBA champions, and they were getting their rings last night. So there was a lot of hoopla going on with that crap. It wasn't just your typical NBA game.
Yeah, I just feel like that's always the kind of case when I feel like a game one is extra difficult when you're facing the defending champions on the same day as the ring ceremony. That's always a difficult game.
In their house too, it's tough, man. So and look, let's not forget the Knicks have some new pieces this year, so they're still trying to figure out how to fit everybody in.
Yeah. I feel like, especially with the NBA, the first 10 games, how you do fare the first 10 games, I feel like could maybe really give me a clue of where they need to be after the season. So I got to give it at least 10 games before I really have a clue on how much the Knicks have to do to get better.
Exactly. And Coach Thibodeau and that Knicks team is going to figure it out one way or another. So, tough loss, but they'll be right back at it against the aforementioned Indiana Pacers this weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how the Knicks bounce back, especially maybe getting some extra juices flowing against a former playoff rival from last year. But then we'll wrap up things tonight, Dan, with a little hockey talk. Real quick on our New York Rangers, who are off to a really hot start this year. They blew out the Canadiens last night, 7-2 in Montreal. Obviously Artemi Panarin looks phenomenal off the bat. Igor Shesterkin is really playing out of his mind for that contract. Alexis Lafreniere is having a great start to his season. Offensively, this team is humming like few times we've seen over the course of the last decade or two,
Yeah, I feel like the Rangers are picking up where they left off last year. Like, they just looked like a team that was on a mission to go all the way, and they just came up short. That's what I feel like the Rangers are doing this year. And similar to the Knicks, we're playing the team that we got eliminated by. And I just feel like the juices, I feel like, especially with the Rangers, there's just going to be a lot of energy going into this game. And I just feel like the Rangers are going to put up a good showing against the Panthers and probably win. I feel like it's going to win this game. This is going to be a big revenge game. And I'm looking forward to watching tomorrow's game. It's just going to be that. This game, I feel like, is going to have playoff atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, and the Rangers catch a break, too, because Alexander Barkov, their top center, who had an 80-plus point season last year, he's a phenomenal player, one of the best young players in the game right now, is currently sidelined with an injury, so the Rangers aren't going to be seeing him. I think he's going to be out for another 2 weeks or so. So the Rangers dodge a bullet there that, should give them a little bit of a leg up against the Panthers going into the game on Thursday night. You're right about that, Dan. So, yeah, and then, one last piece of great news for the Rangers is that Ryan Lindgren has returned from his injury. So him being back yesterday was great.
Yep, Ryan Lindgren, I feel like the tough guy of the Rangers. I feel like the guy who angers our defense. He's back, baby. He's back. Better than ever. And I just feel like this guy, there's just something I love about this guy, his defense. It's like this guy just knows how to take hits. He's like the way they market Timex watches, takes a licking and keeps on ticking. That's Ryan Lindgren. He is the Timex watches of defensive specialists.
Very true. Very true. Well said, my friend. I think on that very accurate statement, we're going to call it a night. Great show tonight. So, Dan, before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, I got a few things. For one thing, I'm going to be working on the track. I'm going to be filming the trackside minute tomorrow morning after work because there isn't a lot of stuff after work because I had to catch up with everything. Like I just watched got around to watching the NASCAR race recently, but I just got to put together all the stuff I'm saying with the trackside minute. But you're going to have a trackside minute on the Patreon. Also, subscribe to my Patreon because you subscribe to our Patreon because you get 2 weeks early access to my YouTube videos. Plus our Patreon exclusive shows we do, which is our NFL wrap-up show during football season, and during the NFL off season, the bonus shows. So you're gonna get that. You're gonna get my 2 weeks early access to to most of my YouTube content, unless maybe I feel it's something that needs to be available to everyone on YouTube right away. You get 2 weeks access to our YouTube videos. So you get that glorious, beautiful extra content. You see my Twitter account there, Bobo103NYC. Instagram and on Threads, it's Bobo718DK. All those places support us, help support the show. That's all my plugs.
Exactly. All right, Dan. So once again, thank you everybody for hanging out with us tonight on the Best Seat in the House podcast. Don't forget to check us out on Instagram at Best Seat in the House podcast, on X BSith_podcast, and don't forget to check us out also on Twitch and on Kick as well. So we appreciate all the support from everybody.
Yeah. And one more thing I gotta say, I feel like it's only right because I do this kind of thing on social media and stuff at the end of when the Mets season. Usually if the Mets don't win a World Series, which has been like every year since '86. Mets in 2005, baby.
Mets in 2005. There we go. And everybody, with that, that's going to do it for us this week. So for my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, I'm Rob Kramer. This is the Best Seat in the House podcast. I will catch you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend.
That's a wrap.